Welcome back. Still tuned in to News and Views with myself, Salala Makwidiri. The time is 10 minutes before the top of the hour. And this hour of News and Views is brought to you by Africa Muslims Agency. Africa Muslims Agency, a beacon of hope to communities for over 35 years in Africa and beyond. And as promised, before we went to that ad break, we'll be shifting our focus now to the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom that has been rocked by widespread riots with far-right groups leading attacks against immigrants and Muslims. This unrest, fueled by misinformation and, xenophobia, essentially has led to violent clashes, arson, and widespread condemnation. The situation escalated following a tragic stabbing incident, which was inaccurately attributed to a Muslim migrant, sparking outrage and chaos across the country. And we'll be joined by Dr. Wahid Abdul. He's a political commentator based out in the UK, who'll be helping us explore some of the underlying causes of these riots and their implications. Dr. Wahid, always a pleasure chatting to you. Welcome to Salam Media.
Thank you very much for having me on this very strange day in London, actually.
Very, very strange. And I think if we can just let that be our point of departure, what's the mood like right now? What's the latest out in London? How are the streets? What's happening? Paint a picture for us.
I think in most areas, when people go out, they don't feel anything. But when in those areas of the UK where there has been widespread rioting, there's a real shock feeling. And when you hear the reports of what's happened, mosques being attacked, literally residential streets where these mobs have been going down and smashing cars, smashing front doors of people, people living in those areas will be quite fearful. In towns where Muslims are in significant numbers, they have mobilized to stand in front of their masajid and in order to kind of show a presence, which has repelled some of the far-right thugs that are going around doing this. And in the wider community, it is strange. When I said the word strange, people in the UK are not used to this kind of violence and thuggery and breakdown in social order. They're just not used to it.
And, I want to focus on some of the underlying reasons for this. Has the UK, particularly, the far right, and maybe some that might not consider themselves, rightist, have they been acting out liberalism to a point that they can't act it out anymore, and the xenophobic, racist, agenda now can't be contained anymore, and it just took something as this tragic stabbing to kind of take it out of people to act out what they've always wanted to act out, an excuse of some sort.
I mean, your question is full of a lot of information which maybe your listeners understand and don't understand, but you're right. In the last week, a week ago, there was this tragedy where a guy went crazy and started stabbing children, and then lies appeared on social media about his background, which then fed into a 20-year narrative of politicians in the UK, mainstream politicians in the UK from all parties, and the mainstream media, corporate media and state media, which have made Muslims and migrants and immigrants and minorities a problem, always making some kind of problem about them, presenting a disproportionate number of stories that make out they're a problem. And just to give you one example, our current Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, was a former human rights lawyer. And if you'd spoken to him 3, 4, 5 years ago, people would have said he's very receptive to Muslims or minorities. In the recent election campaign, just about a month ago, or maybe less than 2 months ago, he started using the same rhetoric about migrants, talking about migrants coming from Bangladesh to be sent back, when actually statistically migrants coming from Bangladesh to the UK are very low in number, and certainly they're not of the asylum seekers who are coming to the UK from places that are troubled, and breaking down in social order and security, like Syria or Afghanistan. It's not like that. And it was very much seen as what they call dog whistle politics, where he was saying this word, Bangladesh migrants should be sent back, which was a signal to that same audience of racist people in the UK, making this community a problem. So even a prime minister like him, and literally in some of the posts I've done and articles I've written, you can trace this back to Tony Blair, David Cameron, Theresa May, Boris Johnson, Rishi Sunak, and their ministers all making this problem. So they have, if you like, made this toxic, explosive cocktail, and then you have these agitators online, people like Tommy Robinson, the politician Nigel Farage, Andrew Tate, that start talking in terms after this tragedy last week, which suggests the link between certain communities and this event. And that's lit the touch paper of this explosive cocktail. And that's really what we're seeing. Unfortunately, it's not a unique thing to the UK, where you have nationalism anywhere in the world, where people really pride themselves on their nation. Just in the last year in Pakistan, they were talking in very ugly terms about how they were going to turn out Afghani refugees. We've seen in Turkey, where Syrian refugees have been there for the last 10 years, how much xenophobia there is towards them, where there's nationalism. These things exist, but actually in the UK, there has been a political agenda. The labeling of Islam and Muslims as a problem is because of a failure of UK foreign policy. All right. So their wars in Afghanistan and Iraq and their policies in the Muslim world have backfired. So rather than taking the blame for that, they blame the Muslims. They say the Muslims have not integrated enough. The Muslims have problematic attitudes and behavior. And similarly, within the UK, they've encouraged economic migration because the population, the economy here needs workers. So they've encouraged people to come from India, from Europe, from other countries in the world to work here legitimately. In 2023, they gave almost 700,000 visas to economic migrants. And at the same time, the governments did not produce enough places in education, health facilities, residence, housing for the ordinary people. So the ordinary people felt squeezed out, and they were blaming migrants and asylum seekers. With the actual number of asylum seekers, 700,000 economic migrants given visas, the actual number of people seeking asylum was more like 70,000, just a very small number. And 2/3 of those were considered to be completely legitimate. So politicians talking about stopping the boats and unwelcome migrants, illegal migrants, they're talking about a problem that actually is more a deflection from their own failing to serve the needs of people. That's one of the reasons they fuel this stuff.
I would like to touch. So sorry to interject there. I would like to touch on the response to this by the UK government, particularly by the Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and how they've labelled these riots. They're calling them acts of criminality. Do you think they're properly coining them and properly dealing with not just the hostility and the violence, but also, again, the underlying causes? Are they doing enough to recognize and touching on that sole point of what exactly is behind all of this? These are not just far right criminal vigilantes that are running amok on the streets of London.
Yeah, absolutely. The politicians here have not done enough. And I think this is, you put your finger on something. So Mr. Starmer has come out and talked about it from a law and order perspective. We're going to arrest these people. We're going to send them to court quickly. We're going to imprison them, right? An honest politician who is giving real leadership. And most of the people here are good people. Right? Most of the people in this society are good people. They don't want this kind of behavior. They want to live side by their neighbors. The 80%, the 70% are good people. A politician with real leadership would stand up and say, we The majority in this country don't accept this, and we're going to stand together. He wouldn't say that the solution to this is the police. He would say the solution to this is public opinion that is going to stand together. And he would have some honest contrition about what he said recently and what his predecessors have been saying for the last 20 years and the lies they've been putting out. That would be a brave and honest politician that did that. But I don't expect that from people that have been part of the problem up till now. And actually, you know, it is good that there are many people here. You may have seen the scenes in Southport, the town where those 3 little girls were killed, when they went rioting and attacked the mosque. The next day, it was the local community that came together and started clearing that up. So all the people came together and they said, this is not what we want. We've lived together here as a community. This is not our problem. Well, a real politician with sincere leadership for all the people would rally people together and unite them at this time and be honest about the causes of it and call out those politicians and media from their own side and other sides that have been complicit in making this. They wouldn't just treat this as a law and order problem, which you have to do. They wouldn't just treat this as individuals, because a lot of these guys, these thugs who are rioting and going around wrecking cars and homes and shops and looting, they don't even know why they're doing it, probably, most of them. They're literally very young, some of them in their teens. It's mindless. They'll lock these people up, but the people who are behind it will get away scot-free. And you need to call them out and shame them for the things they've said and done over the last 20 years.
What's the way forward now? What's the future outlook? Because the immigrants are not going anywhere. The United Kingdom has almost plus minus 4 million Muslims. London, has the greatest proportion. About 15% of London's population is Muslim. These are people that still have to live together after this. These are people that still have to coexist, go to the same schools, ride the same buses, and without the proper leadership, it seems like the situation feels bleak. It doesn't seem like there's a proper way forward in kind of dealing with the underlying issues of the root causes of what's been happening in the UK. For you, what's the future looking like? Are you positive? Are we in a situation where more and more animosity is going to be growing between different groups, and ultimately we'll see things like this happen even on a greater scale than this?
So I'm generally by nature an optimist, okay? But if I tell you what I think politically is going to happen, I think you will see a polarization in society, very much like you see in the United States. So what we saw on the 6th of January 2020, when Trump lost the election and there was rioting and a coup, is we see that like the society is polarized between two groups of people that really hate each other. One is more accommodating of difference, of migration, and one is very nationalistic, very much about, America's for the white people and the Hispanics and stuff, and the black people need to stay out, and problem, and that is the kind of direction. I don't know it would go quite like it as in America to the same proportion, like a 50-50 proportion, because the demographics of the UK are very different. It's a smaller country. You will have within one town a poor area where people might feel very angry about the way their life has gone, and also a more middle class area, richer area where people are more open-minded and judge things a bit more critically. As Muslims, I don't think we can rely on the politicians to solve this for us. We have Allah. We have our deen. Our deen tells us how to behave to neighbors. Our deen tells us how to present ourselves, how to behave generally in society, how to be productive. We should be open to people asking us questions about ourselves. We should be skilled up in giving answers and refuting the lies over time. But this is a long-term agenda, and we have to work on that, and we will. And I think generally I'm optimistic about life always, because some of these things Allah sends to test us, and it makes us better people. Even I tell people, our Prophet, peace be upon him, he was a migrant who migrated from Mecca to Medina. And when he came into Medina and there were other migrants with him, he didn't go for the tribal, you're one tribe, we're another. He bonded them together as brothers, right? He instituted a policy, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to bond people together as brothers where they would share. And it creates a mentality in society which is very different to the flag waving nationalistic mentality, which is a lot about skin color and a lot about a very narrow identity. Those are things that we have to live with and change people's minds and thinking, and show them there's a better way to live as human beings. And I hope, inshallah, out of this will come something positive for us, where we are presenting our deen, ourselves, and humanity generally with a better alternative.
I think we're going to leave it on that note, Abdul Wahid. Always a pleasure chatting to you. I really, really appreciate you giving us your time. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
There you have it. We've come to the end of our show. It's been another insightful one. Before I let you go, there's a comment that I would like to read out. This from Rushdin Fakir. He says, off topic, though, we cannot compare South Africa's illegal immigration issue with the United Kingdom's. The root cause of their issue is poor racism stemming from UK's foreign policy. Well, one might argue that our issues here, our illegal immigration issues here, are also stemming from the poor foreign policy implementations by our government, the ANC, the way that they've been dealing with ZANU-PF out in Zimbabwe, treating them with kiddies gloves when there's been, reports of human rights violations again and again, the rigging of elections again and again, which ultimately saw the breakdown of the economy of Zimbabwe and having their people coming into South Africa. So, I don't know. Maybe they're similar, maybe they're not. We've come to the end of our show. It's been another insightful, interesting one. We hope to see you again on the Wednesday edition of News and Views. But for myself, Salailo Makwidiri, there's the team, Kolani, Nasreen, and everyone that has made this show possible. It's goodbye. See you again tomorrow.